this I thought of paint. Today I decided to paint a fairy based on the year of the wood dragon. I also made a fairy last year for Chinese New Year, and I thought, why not try again this year? Full disclosure, I'm doing this for fun. I'm not from any Asian country and I don't celebrate Chinese New Year myself. I just thought it would be fun to do something like this. And also continue from last year. And all of this is literally just to paint something fun and cute. There's nothing more to it. We are not going for 100% accuracy here because I don't think I can achieve that with this. Anyways, with that out of the way, since this is the year of the wood dragon, I decided to do something based on that. One thing I also told myself I would do is no line art was going to be allowed. Kinda doesn't go to plan for one little part, which is the mouth, but otherwise I absolutely and 100% stick to not putting any line art down. That was just a rule that I decided to set myself, to just challenge myself a little bit. I was going to do this with just a sketch and my paints. Nothing that is remotely related to line art. And at first I wanted to have a fairy in a dragon costume, so like a huge dragon costume where multiple people go in, that kind of deal. But when I looked at the empty page, it just got so intimidating that I decided to do something that's less challenging. Maybe I'll do it in a different year, but not this year. Instead, I decided she'll have a dragon puppet or something of the likes. A little heads up, I somehow managed to give her the same hairstyle as the fairy last year. We'll just say this is her sister or something, and that I didn't forget that I literally gave the fairy from last year the same hairstyle. I didn't realise until I checked the painting from last year. I mean, the fairy last year also had bunny ears, which this one doesn't, because it's not the year of a bunny, it's the year of a dragon, but still, you know. Well then, she also gets a dress that is vaguely inspired by things that I saw on Pinterest. It was definitely not inspired by anything that was particular to any Asian country or anything like that. I was just having fun and creating a dress that I thought was going to look pretty on her. I struggled to come up with things for a background. Last year I had the fairy standing on a leaf, but I obviously didn't want to just repeat myself. At least not any more than I had already repeated myself with that hairstyle. Eventually I decided on a bunch of floating lanterns and an undefined wooden wall behind her, as well as a cherry blossom tree in the bottom right corner because it was just looking empty and I wanted to put something down there that wasn't red or orange because those colours were definitely going to dominate the painting, and I just thought something that wasn't going to be all red would be nice. Red is of course the colour to wear around this festival, the New Year, for the dragon, Chinese New Year. I don't know, why do you call it Chinese New Year if it's celebrated across Asia? Well, not across Asia, but like in different Asian countries, you know. Bit confusing. But during this festival you wear red because it brings good luck, and you definitely want good luck for the next year. For the entire painting, I will mainly use my Winsor Newton flower watercolour palette. I thought that it would be nice to limit myself again to a palette that doesn't consist of all that variety that the Van Gogh palette has. This palette comes with the colours lemon yellow hue, cadmium yellow hue, cadmium red deep hue, permanent rose, dioxazine purple, ultramarine, sap green, and Chinese white. There's some really long names in there, huh? But anyways, using it on this big sheet of paper reminded me of the fact that the Winsor Newton paints kind of smear a little bit and reactivate and lift off a lot more easily than my Van Gogh paints. Regardless, it worked quite well and I had fun with it. The first layer I did for the painting was mostly just to establish the lighting. A good amount of lemon yellow around the lanterns and everywhere where they were going to be casting light, and then ultramarine to figure out the shadows of everything that would be affected by said light. Usually I think I would have gone for indigo, but the palette doesn't have indigo, so I had to stick to what I had. Also, before I talk more about this painting, I have a complaint with Pinterest. I know a lot of people have already mentioned this and it's been talked about, but this really frustrated me while I was looking up references for the dragon that the fairy was going to be holding. And, I mean, you can guess what was popping up. I mean, people talk about it a lot lately, especially on regarding Pinterest. If you guessed AI images, then you are completely right. It was just really frustrating trying to find a reference for a Chinese dragon and then getting poorly done AI images. It doesn't matter how often they say premium AI generated underneath in the title. They are not premium at any rate. I would never label anything like that as premium. I guess it's to make people think it's like special, but it's really not. The proportions were wrong. I don't want to show the images here because honestly, I don't want to support AI images. I just needed to rant a little bit because it was just so... makes me mad. Like, I really don't get how people can keep saying that AI is so going to replace artists, but then the best they can come up with is whatever is on Pinterest right now. It's just, if you look up Chinese dragons or just in general wood dragon, I got it, I think, by looking up Year of a Dragon and Wood Dragon. Like, the proportions are all wrong. Like, just look at them long enough and you will see, you know, like, snouts are too small, there's weird shapes going on, the scales start switching directions suddenly, and horns are also, like, poking out to one side. It's, on one hand it's funny, but on the other it was just frustrating because I was trying to look up actual images of dragons, and those were not, you know, proper dragons for... they were not proper Chinese dragons. That's all I'm gonna say about this. I don't want to keep complaining the whole video about AI art. That was just something I had to get off my chest. Okay, enough ranting. Let's get back to talking about my beautiful hand-drawn painting that no computer can ever replicate properly. I was really scared of the background, I gotta say. Like really scared. I just wasn't sure what to do with it. Perhaps I should have planned something out beyond the lanterns, but at the time of the sketch I just didn't think about it. It's just like, yeah, that's a problem for future me to handle. That was kind of my attitude there. For a while I was debating if I should switch to gouache or perhaps do the background in coloured pencils to help me figure out where everything is going to be going. And I gotta say, the idea of like doing a watercolour foreground and then coloured pencil background, that kind of sounds fun, and I don't use my coloured pencils nearly enough. I might do that eventually, like just pick my coloured pencils and do that kind of combination. I think it'll look nice. Eventually though, I get over my fear and decided enough was enough, and I tackled the background with my watercolour paints. And I really surprised myself when I managed to mix a shade of brown with my watercolour paints that I had, because the palette itself doesn't have a brown. It's just red, yellow, green, purple, pink, and blue, and white. You know, those are kind of the colours, not in that order, that was really messed up order, but I don't have a brown, that's my point. And so I really surprised myself when I just suddenly managed to mix a brown shade, which I don't do a lot because usually I have like burnt sienna and burnt umber and all that. So I'm really proud of myself for that one. That success, however, does not keep me from messing up the hand that is holding the stick. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Although that was more of a struggle of me trying to shade the hand correctly, rather than, you know, getting the right colour down. It just, hands are weird. Let's leave it at that. Other than that, I am incredibly happy with the skin tone that I mixed for her too. It's a lot darker than the skin tone I gave the fairy from last year, which is a surprise to me because somehow I managed to go ahead and mix a dark skin tone, which I struggle with a lot. I don't know. This painting is just full of surprises, I guess. And I somehow also managed to go from that dark brown colour mix to a sort of black colour. It's not really black, it's like a very dark grey. But it's dark enough that I decided, okay, I can use this to paint the whiskers of a dragon. And I know what many of you may think right now as you are watching this. Yes, I know, the whiskers are in the wrong place. I only realised this towards the very, very end though. So For the majority of this, the dragon had the whiskers in the entirely wrong spot. And by the time I do notice this, I don't try to erase the wrong whiskers because I didn't want to make more work for myself, because by the time that I realised, it was almost time for me to just hit the bed, you know. So I give him a second pair of whiskers in the correct spot. My excuse for this shall be this. The fairy was crafting this dragon out of paper for the upcoming Chinese New Year festivals. In the process, she forgot where the whiskers were supposed to go, and at first she put them next to the mouth, but then she came to the realization that that is the very, very wrong spot for those whiskers. However, she couldn't simply pull out the whiskers, that would not work because they were glued on, and she didn't have enough paper left to cover anything that was ripped off when she would try to remove them. So her solution was that she would simply make more whiskers, two in the right spot, and then the two that weren't in the right spot. She would just have 4 whiskers for this dragon. In her opinion, that gave the dragon more character, and it was a lot more fun for 4 strings to be swirling around in the wind than just 2. Now, before you go see, AI isn't that different from you because you also make mistakes. Well, this is different. I realized my mistake. AI doesn't realize its mistakes because it's just an algorithm. I don't know why people call it intelligent when it's just not really intelligent. An intelligent person would be able to look at an image and tell you what is wrong with that image, especially if they are a, practiced artist. AI can't look at a picture of a cat and say that ear is in the wrong spot, or something like that. Anyway, I didn't want to make this video about AI, so back to the painting itself. So, for the background, I went back to mixing that brown colour. I really left that wall for last because I was debating maybe I try to put some building structures behind her, but then I thought, that would be very, very complicated and would require me to do more detail than I kind of want to at the moment. So I just went in with browns and painted a wooden structure-ish kind of thing. And at that point, I decided that it was time to move on to different paints. I decided it was time to move on to the gouache paints. And with it, I added lighting effects to the wall behind the lanterns, as well as drawing little circles around the lanterns in yellows and oranges and stuff, in order to make it look like the lanterns were glowing and casting light on the things that are around them, That's what that was for. I also used the gouache to paint little details on her dress, like little dots that would represent flowers. If she were closer, I would have done that in more detail, but, it's very tiny. I'm not drawing lots of tiny flowers when I can just draw dots. I also added a little dragon on the center front on her skirt. That dragon was very free-handed, and I think you can tell that because it doesn't look particularly accurate, but it's enough to tell you what it is supposed to be, so I'm fine with it. And at that point, I thought that I am done, and so I signed the painting before taking off a tape. But don't you think it's actually done? Because while I was having dinner, I came to the realization that I had forgotten my favorite thing. Metallic watercolors. I literally opened the palette at the start of this video because I was already planning to use it. And then I forgot. It just left my mind for some reason. So despite me having already taken off a tape and also signed the painting, I came back to the painting and added in golden glows around the lanterns and on some of the spots on the dragon and the fairy where the light would be just kind of highlighting them a little bit, However, it's still not done as I go back to my gouache paints again and add more details, shading in the stripes on the top of her dress, adding more shading to the dragon on the skirt, and then finally adding the whiskers that are supposed to be in the right spot. Just drawing in the whiskers where they are supposed to be. Sure, it looks a little strange now because he's got 4 whiskers and 2 of them are in the wrong place, but as I've said, it gives the dragon character. And that's my excuse. Now we are officially and properly done with this painting. Woo! Only took me an entire day to get to this point. And 15 minutes for you guys. Anyways, On to the final result. Despite the struggle that I had with this painting, I think it turned out very cute. The lanterns are nice and glowy, but don't distract too much from our two main figures, the fairy with a paper dragon that has 2 whiskers too many. That detail is really starting to grow on me though, like, I'm liking my dragon a lot. Such a happy little accident. The fairy herself is very cute, even if she ended up with almost exactly the same hairstyle as the one from last year. The only difference being that she doesn't have bunny ears. Maybe I should have given her dragon horns, that would have been fun. Darn. That's a missed opportunity. Next year, I hope I remember to give the fairy a different hairstyle though, rather than accidentally copying the same one that I have now used twice for a Chinese New Year fairy. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, check out my Instagram, Discord, and Twitch, links down in the description. For Twitch, there's something special coming up since Valentine's Day happens to fall on one of my stream days. So I guess we're going to be doing Valentine's art on Wednesday if you're interested in that. For the time being, I am the Witch of Paint, and I shall see you all next Sunday. Happy Year of the Wood Dragon. Bye! Oh, look what a beautiful dragon has flown into the end of the video. Hello and well done for making it this far. As a reward, as always, I do have some outtakes just for you. Have fun! What was that? But it really frustrated me while I was looking up references for the dragons. I mean the dragon, not dragons, lol. There's only one dragon in the painting, haha. So for the majority of this, the dragon had whiskered, haha, whiskered, in order to make it look like the lanterns were glowing, you know, they were shedding light. Shedding light? That's the way you say it, right? Oh no, it's casting light. Let's go with casting light.